everybody, this is Charles again, and I'm here with another review, and today I'll be reviewing the Spider-Man Homecoming film. So before I begin, if you've been following me for a very long time, you know I am a huge Spider-Man fan. I love Spider-Man. He is my all-time favorite superhero, and he's the reason why I got into comic books, and why I read them, and why I collect the toys. And not only is he my favorite superhero, he's my favorite fictional character. And like my other movie reviews, I'll point out the good, the bad, the things I like, the things I don't like. And, well, since this is a movie review, there will be spoilers, so fair warning. Don't watch this if you don't want to be spoiled. So if you're still watching this, that means you either watch the film or don't care. Well, you're still here, so let's begin. I'll start with a plot. Very straightforward and basic. The beginning opens up with, well, it was a flashback several years ago during the Avengers, after their big fight with the Chitauri. There were damage control workers, and one of them is Adrian Toomes, who is the main antagonist, the Vulture. And they were able to pick up some scraps from the alien technology from the Chitauri, and they kept it for themselves. So they kept a lot of contraband evidence. Several years, and then a couple of years later, there was a flashback of Peter Parker's point of view during the Civil War timeline. He was filming himself with a camera, showing the cool events and that and whatnot. And then we go to the present day. Adrian Toomes and his group of criminals and thugs, they reverse engineered the technology, and they use it themselves or sell it to other criminals, since they're arm dealers, to make a lot of money. And the story with Peter Parker, it takes place in his high school days. He's a sophomore, and he's with his best friend Ned, who's an original character for the movie, which I really do like. He goes through a lot of things in high school, which most of us can relate to, and that's why I love Spider-Man, how much I can relate to him. Like school programs, classes, tests, especially girls. And he had a interest in a girl named Liz, who is a little different from the comic books, but I didn't mind that. But later on, it was revealed that she's the daughter of Vulture. I know a lot of people complained about Iron Man being in the film, but the thing is, he wasn't in a lot of scenes. He just played the important parts, minor roles. And I don't understand why people were complaining, since in the comic books, Spider-Man and Iron Man have a mentor-student relationship, so that makes a lot of sense. And what I love about this film is how much it shows Spider-Man has to take responsibility, which is recurring for the character, and which is why I love him so much. Like, he was invited to a party by Liz, and Ned, him blabbing about him being friends with Spider-Man, they want Spider-Man to show up, who happens to be Peter, that Liz and Flash Thompson don't know. He was very close to putting on the suit and appearing further guessing, hey, I am good friends with Spider-Man, but there was like a giant explosion, and instead of being at the party as Spider-Man, he actually went to the site, which shows how responsible he can be. And there were a bunch of thugs selling a criminal, played by Donald, I forgot his name, Glover, if I remember correctly. they were selling them the high-tech weapons before Spider-Man stopped them. And then Vulture came in and then swooped him, trying to stop Spider-Man, and he dropped him off to a lake until Iron Man, or at least his armor, because he wasn't actually there, he was at a party, saved him. And he went through a lot of stressful things as both a superhero and a student, like the decathlon. He couldn't make it because of, again, the criminals, led by Vulture. And the homecoming. And that brings up my earlier point about Liz being the daughter of Vulture, which is a complete shock when I watched it, and everybody else was just as shocked. Because it shows that supervillains, they aren't always 100% evil, and in Vulture's case, he does it for his family. He steals Chitauri resources and re-engineers them as weapons and sells them for profit so he can provide for his family. But it's still wrong. So I really liked how Vulture's not a complete bad guy. I mean, he's still a bad guy, but not completely. And what I love about this film is it fixes mistakes from the other Spider-Man films, like especially Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2. Both those movies had multiple antagonists. It can be done well, but for Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man, it didn't, because it was all over the place. Because when you write a movie, a TV show, or a book, you have to have structure and story. Like, who's the main antagonist? Who's the second antagonist? Who's the supporting antagonist? Who's the minor antagonist? And the villains in Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, it was all over the place. Some were even unnecessary, especially Rhino. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, the ending. But for this movie, the villains and the antagonists are all balanced out. Vulture, clearly the main antagonist. The Shocker, well, there were two Shockers. One died, and the other, who was Herman Schultz, he's the second and minor antagonist. And the other antagonists, they're minor villains. But I do love the balance of villains. And especially Mac Gargan. He didn't play too much of a big role, but he is best known as Scorpion in the comic books, which I will get more into Mac Gargan later. And there was a final fight scene where Vulture stole from Stark Tower, or Avengers Tower, but Spidey was able to stop him. And they had a big fight, and there was an explosion because of the arc reactors, which is one of the things he stole. But fortunately, Vulture didn't die. If anything, he survived and was arrested, which is another thing I love about Spider-Man Homecoming. He's the only Spider-Man villain on film to not die. And there's a lot of great references and Easter eggs that will treat Spider-Man fans very well, including myself. Like the famous storyline where Spider-Man was able to carry up the giant burden, and he did it with strength and willpower. And one of the more controversial things about the film is Zendaya as Michelle. A lot of people thought that she was going to be Mary Jane, but instead she's just Michelle, but her initials are MJ, which is the same as Mary Jane. And I know a lot of people are complaining about that, but the thing is, she is an homage to Mary Jane. She's not Mary Jane. She's a reference to Mary Jane, and a lot of films use homages, whether it's an original film or an adaptation. Towards the ending, Tony Stark did say that they were moving to an upstate, and I just loved it. The new place, it's basically Avengers Mansion. And Tony Stark, he offered Peter a new Spider-Man armor, which is great, which is a great homage when Tony in the comic books actually gave Peter the Iron Spider armor, but in the movie he declines because he was offered to join the Avengers, but he declines because he wanted to stay grounded and start off small before he can get ready. And the mid-credits and post-credit scene, the mid-credit scene, Adrian Toomes in prison, he was talking to Mac Gargan. Mac Gargan was saying that he can get Adrian Toomes out of there. There's guys outside. So maybe in one of the sequels there's a potential prison break with the other villains, and maybe Mac Gargan will eventually become Scorpion. Who knows? And the post-credit scene, it's very funny. It's just Captain America with a PSA. So my final thoughts on this film: it's a great film, but it's not perfect. I do have problems with it, like I didn't like the fights with Spider-Man and Vulture, honestly, because they didn't really feel like fights. They're more like chases. Like Spider-Man is just chasing after Vulture, and Shocker, who's the second or minor antagonist. There were a lot of promo pictures of him wearing the iconic costume in the comics, but we never got to see him with the red and yellow suit, which is very disappointing. But besides that, I feel like the villain himself is underdeveloped too. We don't get a lot of fight scenes with him too, since the first Shocker died and the second one was easily defeated. But I still recommend this movie. It's great, but it's not perfect. And I really love the Marvel Cinematic Universe because how they bring life to famous Marvel characters, but at the same time make it different. But to some extent, it makes it faithful and not a carbon copy. So, I really did enjoy this film. Like I said, it's not perfect. I had problems with it, but the good outweigh the bad. I really did enjoy this film. So, thank you for watching, everybody, and I really hope you all enjoyed this movie review.